Good morning everybody, good morning, it's JPR, and welcome back to another video. While I'm sure that many see Pokemon as an easy kids game, and let's face it, they're right, over the 25-year history of the franchise there have been a number of challenges that stick out among the crowd. Some of these are individual battles that were oddly tough compared to others, and some are insane gauntlets that make you question why it was ever okay for them to exist in the first place. So let's take a look back at some of the most difficult challenges that Pokemon has to offer. And to keep things interesting, this time we'll be discussing not just the core games, but the spin-offs as well. Let's jump into it. Let's begin with one of the most difficult tasks of my childhood, clearing Mount Battle in Pokémon XD Gale of Darkness, a gauntlet of 100 fierce battles. And the reason why I said XD and not Coliseum is because of how much more bonkers the final few areas are in that game. To be fair, most of Mount Battle isn't so much challenging as it is monotonous, but that final stretch is absolutely brutal. For instance, in Area 10 in XD, nearly every fight is against a full weather team or an NPC loaded up with legendaries. Fun fact, by the way, Chaser Rillian, the 93rd battle, uses Wes's team from Pokemon Coliseum, consisting of Espeon, Umbreon, and the 3 legendary beasts, which really just makes me sad that Wes isn't the final boss. Instead, it's just some dude. A very powerful dude at that, but still, a dude. I'm not sure if there's an official Mount Battle speedrun out there, but the fastest run of all 100 trainers that I saw clocked in around 3.5 hours, with the average being closer to 5. Fortunately, Mount Battle is a completely skippable area for those that would rather go watch paint dry. But XD does have another similarly long string of battles that you have to go through, with Citydark Isle, certainly one of the most challenging areas in any Pokemon game, featuring 36 Shadow Pokemon, nearly half of all the ones in the game. Need I remind you that in this game, Shadow Pokemon learn a wide array of devastating moves that are super effective against every Pokemon type. The final boss, Greevil, uses a team consisting entirely of Shadow Pokemon, including the 3 legendary birds. The silver lining is that the other half of his team should be relatively easy to catch. Nonetheless, Citydark Isle stands out as one of the most sinister grinds in all of Pokemon. Now, of course, the most infamous challenge that most people are acquainted with is Whitney and her accursed Miltank. And I know this is where some Poindexter is going to comment down below telling me how Whitney isn't actually hard if you just do the trade in the Goldenrod department store for the Machop, but you know, maybe I don't want to take the easy way out. Maybe I just don't vibe with commanding a Pokemon that turns into a blue grown man with 4 arms. That's just a little disturbing, and I don't like it. Or you could just use my patented Nuzlocke strategy, where you hope you catch a Geodude early in the game, level him up until he learns self-destruct, and then you light that bad boy up like a New Year's Eve firework. Boom! No more Miltank. I mean, hey, I'd rather lose one Pokemon than the whole team, you feel? But nonetheless, seeing as how that's only 2 Pokemon in the entire game that can feasibly make that battle not terrible, means that it must still be a pretty difficult battle. So let's break Whitney's Miltank down. Why is this cow responsible for broken Game Boy Colors across the planet? First of all, consider that Johto is notorious for its lack of EXP and low levels throughout the region, meaning most of your Pokemon probably aren't fully evolved by the 3rd gym yet and have relatively low stats, whereas Miltank, who doesn't evolve at all, sits there with a massive base stat total of 490. Including 100 base speed, easily the fastest Pokemon in the game by that point, 105 base defense, and 80 base attack. This is an absolute behemoth for the early game. If Whitney were the 7th or 8th gym leader, this Miltank would actually be considerably less powerful despite retaining the same base stats. The earlier in the game it is, the more threatening these single-stage Pokemon become. The first move in its arsenal is the powerful stab move Stomp, which also has a chance to flinch since Miltank will almost certainly be faster than all of your Pokemon. Next up is Attract, which coming from a female Miltank will be especially problematic for anyone rolling up to this gym with their starter Pokemon, since all starters have an 87.5% male to female gender ratio. This is another reason why the trait of Machop is useful, because it's coded to be female 100% of the time. Milk Drink allows Miltank to heal 10 times on top of the potions that Whitney holds, which may as well be infinite recovery in a battle that probably won't last that long. Because of this, it's the only gym leader ace that doesn't carry a Citrus Berry in the remakes, instead carrying a Lum Berry to skate around problematic statuses like Paralysis and Burn. And finally, the most infamous move of all, Rollout. Because Miltank is so bulky, it's highly unlikely you'll be able to KO this thing in less than 3 hits, which means Rollout should have no problem reaching powers of 120, 240, or even 480 if it doesn't miss, making that self-destruct firework I mentioned earlier look more like a sparkler. So 9 times out of 10, if it starts rolling, your best strategy at that point is to just pray to the RNG gods. But yes, I think that about covers why Whitney's Miltank is quite possibly the most ridiculous Pokemon on any gym leader's team, scarring an entire generation of Pokemon players for life. But of course, that's not the only exceedingly difficult battle that Heart Gold and Soul Silver have to offer, as who could forget about the final boss himself, Red. Now, Red can be battled in many different games with a team similar to, or in some cases completely the same as this one. So what separates Heart Gold and Soul Silver Red from the rest of the crowd? First is the level gap. Blue's team in the remakes maxes out at level 60, while Red, the very next trainer without grinding, peaks at level 88. A whopping 28 level jump in a game where grinding is considerably difficult. In the original Gold and Silver, the jump was only 23 levels, although that's still pretty daunting. Furthermore, in Heart Gold and Soul Silver, there's the added twist of the hail weather condition during the battle. Red takes full advantage of this by teaching Blizzard to 3 Pokemon on his team, a move that never misses in the hail. I don't care what you bring to this fight, if you're getting hit by Blizzard multiple times in one battle, it's probably not going well. Blizzard shenanigans aside, Red's team carries 14 of the 17 elemental types, only lacking ground, rock, and dragon moves, and of course fairy, which didn't exist yet, giving him absolutely superb coverage. By the way, Whitney isn't the only deceptively difficult early game boss that the core games have to offer. In the Sinnoh region, the first battle against Galactic Commander Mars sticks out as one feared by many. At first glance, this battle doesn't look very hard at all. It's just a Zubat and a Purugly, both with only 3 moves. This should be a walk in the park. But taking a closer look at Purugly, we can start to see where the narrative shifts. First of all, Purugly is not supposed to evolve until level 38, which makes this one 22 levels underleveled. As far as I know, this is the most underleveled evolution in any Pokemon game's main story. So, like Miltank before it, since Purugly is meant to be a late game Pokemon, its base stat total of 452 is mind-bogglingly overwhelming for the beginning of the game. Especially that 112 speed stat. Nothing you'll find in early Sinnoh will come even close to matching this thing in that department, except maybe a mildly overleveled Pachirisu with base 95 speed. Catching one of those and fishing for a paralysis with Spark might be your best bet in this fight. But it's worth mentioning that this fight is not nearly as difficult for users of Monferno, since its Mach Punch can bypass Purugly's insanely high base speed. Regardless, this fight is definitely set up to be one of the hardest in the game for those who chose Piplup or Turtwig. I should know, seeing as how I chose Piplup in my first playthrough of Diamond as a kid, and I was stuck at the Valley Windworks for a considerably long time. Returning to the spin-offs for a moment, for those truly seeking a challenge, look no further than the post-game dungeons from the Mystery Dungeon series. In the first game specifically, Purity Forest is widely regarded as the hardest dungeon in the game. Purity Forest is a 99-floor dungeon where you're reset to level 1 upon entering without any teammates, items, or IQ skills. Unlike most dungeons, there's no way to prepare ahead of time, and the run depends solely on the luck of the items that spawn and the Pokemon that don't. What separates this dungeon from the numerous other ones that reset your level and forbid you to take in items is that here, all Pokemon you encounter are unrecruitable, and the heavy darkness effect limits your vision in the corridors, making it far easier to get into trouble here. Fortunately, you are rewarded with Celebi joining your team once you reach the 99th floor. But arguably the most difficult dungeon in the series, surpassing even Purity Forest, is Ultimate Wilds, a commonly forgotten dungeon from Gates to Infinity. This one flies under the radar a bit due to the fact that, well, not many people played Gates to Infinity, and secondly, it's actually a DLC dungeon, which was quite unheard of for Nintendo in 2013. This dungeon is so crazily difficult to clear that most wikis and fan sites don't even have information for the entire dungeon listed, even 8 years later. In fact, on all of YouTube, I was only able to find 2 people who successfully cleared the dungeon. Basically, in addition to having the parameters previously outlined in Purity Forest, every wild Pokemon is like a boss in itself, since many of them possess the absurdly broken skills normally exclusive to you and your team. Basically, every single fight is a dice roll as to whether or not these skills will activate. This dungeon is most likely the single hardest challenge in the entire history of the Pokemon franchise, yet simultaneously, one of the least known. The grand reward at the end is an item known as the Courage Crown, a held item that sharply boosts the user's attack. Yeah, you basically go through hell and back for an item version of Swords Dance. To say this dungeon is brutal would be an understatement. Gosh, after that, these last few I have written down don't seem nearly as bad, but we'll talk about them anyway. Pokemon Black 2 and White 2 has a couple of decent post-game challenges, the first being the critically acclaimed Pokemon World Tournament in Driftvale City, featuring gym leaders and champions from the first 5 regions. Of course, the main attraction that everyone remembers from this is the Champions Cup, where you fight all the champions, including past ones like Red and Blue, but many forget just how hard it is to even unlock the Champions Cup. First, you have to beat the Unova Leaders Tournament, which unlocks the tournaments for the other 4 regions. Then, after you've beaten all of those, you unlock the World Leaders Tournament, which is a mix of all the gym leaders from across the world, this time with considerably stronger, borderline competitive teams. Only after you've cleared this specific cup 10 times will you finally unlock the Champions Cup, where many of the game's hardest battles await you. That's right, despite being the newly crowned champion of Unova, you still have to prove yourself just to fight these other champions. What makes the single battle tournament in particular very difficult is the fact that each trainer only uses 3 of their possible 6 Pokemon, meaning it's nearly impossible to prepare for which teams you'll fight against. The other challenge exclusive to Black 2 and White 2 is the climb to the top of the Black Tower or White Tree Hollow, depending on the version you're playing. In the core games, these are the biggest dungeons in the Pokemon world, with both being 20-floor labyrinths, forcing you to piece together clues about how to climb further, all while dodging exceptionally strong trainers along the way, with many in the later areas using legendary Pokemon, including the final boss, Alder's grandson, Benga. In a way, it's like a condensed version of Mount Battle from the Colosseum series, with a little bit more thinking involved. To make it a little bit more difficult than old Mount Battle though, you can't use any items and you're only given 1 free heal per floor, and you have to seek out and defeat a doctor to get it. It's like a step above American healthcare. In a way, it's highly reminiscent of another incredibly difficult battle facility, the Battle Pyramid from Pokemon Emerald. Now, as much as I'd love to put the entire Battle Frontier down, I think we all know how tough it is, so instead, I'm choosing to hone in on the one that I personally believe to be the hardest. The Battle Pyramid is Black Tower on crack. You're basically turned into a caveman, foraging in the dark for healing items while randomly selected and often extremely fast wild Pokemon that you can't run away from are sent to terrorize you. Similar to the mystery dungeon areas that we discussed earlier, you're also not allowed to bring your actual bag or held items here, so once again, it's really the lack of preparation more than anything that tips the Battle Pyramid over the edge. About the only things that you can prepare for are 2 fights against the Pyramid King Brandon and his 2 teams of legendary Pokemon. Truly a challenge unlike any other. And that's gonna do it for me. Let me know down in the comments which of these challenges is your personal favorite, or give me one that I didn't include in this video, because there are certainly a lot more. If you enjoyed, be sure to leave a like and subscribe for more videos like this one. I'll see you guys next time.